F1, F1, F1. As I've already covered, the sport is big business. It's a very large company, large enterprise running very big shows for a lot of people. And there's a lot of money going around. So, a lot of things at stake. But I've already covered that part of it. So you can watch my other video if you want to on that. I'm not going to comment much here. But there's something else that's very important in the sport. And that is...
Let Checo through. Let Checo through. Max, let Checo through, please. Max, what happened?
I told you already last time. You guys don't ask that again to me.
Very whiny and selfish drivers. It's not just that. It's actually politics in general. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that you really don't get to see if you're just watching and tuning in every weekend. To watch the sport, to watch the race, to watch the guys compete. But once the lights are out, the race is over, there's a lot of things that go on. There's a lot of hidden rules that sometimes surface, in the forms of scandals, in the forms of disagreements, all kinds of things. And even more has come out in recent years from the TV show, the Formula One Drive to Survive. The one where Toto Wolff screams a lot, Gunther Steiner swears a lot, Ferrari is really bad. Sounds like I'm essentially describing a typical Grand Prix weekend. But a lot of things have come to light. Some of these things are so weird that if you were to imagine these things to be in football or in hockey, it'd be a massive f***ing scandal. But because it's F1, it's, it's different. It's fine. So let me cover a few of these things, what I mean. I think it's a bit difficult to explain. But I think you'll get it once I start explaining them. Alright? So, let's just get into this.
I fucking had enough of both of you. You let the fucking team down, me down, which I protected you all the time. I have not more to fucking say to you guys. And if you don't like it, I don't need you here. Do not come back, please. What was that?
Kevin just fucking smashed the door. That's not acceptable.
He does not smash my door. Tell him that. I don't know where he is, but he can off.
The first part that I would focus on is the internal team politics. There's been plenty of occasions where internal rules, internal team culture has come out into the light and was really badly received by the viewers. And a good example of that that's still going on to this day and has been going on for so long is an example of Ferrari. Ferrari that has a very distinct number 1 and number 2 driver, which is really fucked up. Usually what happens in the Formula 1 teams, whoever is leading the Grand Prix, leading the championship, and is about to win and needs those points to win the championship, that teammate will be favored over the other one if the other one is essentially out of the race at this point, then yes. But Ferrari, I think there's a very strong cultural aspect there. You've got Carlos Sainz, who's a Spanish driver. He's a great driver, very promising, very strong in the car. I think he's proven himself multiple times over that he's a truly great driver. And there's Charles Leclerc, who's an absolute superstar. He's very well known in Italy. He's very well known in France, obviously, in Monaco, of course. He's also phenomenal, and I wouldn't be able to say which one of them is better at the sport, at driving. But you kind of get the idea that Charles is number 1, of course. And he has very particular, I feel like, relationship with the team. He's definitely the prophecy child or whatever that would propel the sport even further. There's something about that relationship between the Ferrari team and Charles. And I think whatever Carlos does, unless he's going to be constantly winning races as opposed to Charles, which with the way that Ferrari has fared this season, there's less than 0% fucking chance that they're getting a single win this year. The whole fucking track needs to dive bomb into the first wall at the first gun on the first lap for the Ferrari to actually have a slim chance of winning. And that's if the fucking car is reliable enough to go all the way. You know? They might just fucking retire themselves. Because why not? Is it just me, or does it seem like a really fucked up thing to do? Like, to have this one guy that's technically not even doing that well be their number one just because he's almost Italian. I mean, it's good for marketing, of course. Selling Ferraris, marketing, having a driver that's monegasque, that speaks Italian. It's good for marketing, but I'm not sure that's entirely fair. Sounds like a rule that Enzo Ferrari had put in place 90 years ago, and nobody has dared cross that since then. Another interesting aspect within the internal team culture is also what has happened with Red Bull. You know, the team that's really winning now. Well, when they weren't, just after Max Verstappen took over and then Ricciardo had decided to leave, the team sort of went through quite a few drivers during that period of time, because they were looking for a replacement for a phenomenal driver, Daniel Ricciardo, and for someone to rival Max Verstappen, who was like the wunderkind of the Paddock at that point. So essentially, as soon as you were not showing that you could be alongside Max and be performing up at the top with Max, you were essentially kicked out quite quickly. And other teams have scooped up those drivers quite quickly and put them in as their star lineup. Gasly and Albon are both doing quite well right now and performing well. But just, you know, they weren't up to par. They couldn't be alongside Max and that team. And so Red Bull really wanted a strong number 2 driver. And I guess they've landed on Perez. I'm not sure how good of a decision that is, but I'm not married to a Spice Girl, so I can't be the judge. Quick question: are you getting annoyed yet? These intermissions are becoming more and more frequent, don't you think? But trust me, they're necessary. I need your help. I could genuinely need your help. And the best way to help me is to scroll down really quickly and click that subscribe button. And also the like button. That one really helps a lot as well. Gets it out to even more people to watch and enjoy my beautiful art. Like, this is art. Don't you agree? Absolute masterpiece. Alright. Alright, thanks. Now, if we zoom out a little bit, and instead of looking at specific teams, we then look at the team setup as a whole, it starts becoming even more strange. Well, not all teams are equal, if you haven't noticed. And I'm not talking about the money here. You know, how much each team has to spend, blah, blah, blah. They've tried to address that with cost caps, but I don't think it's really working. But I'm not talking about the money here. I'm talking about, like, how teams are treated on the paddock. Because it's very different. So imagine a situation where a new regulation is being set in place. And the FIA is going around and asking, like, hey, Haas, what do you think about this thing? You know, we're asking everyone, just tell us what you think. And then Haas will be like, yeah, we think this is shit. And then the FIA will be like, yeah, we actually don't give a fuck. Alright, let's implement it anyway. But then they'll be like, oh shit, we haven't asked Ferrari. Let's quickly do that. Otherwise we'll be hanging by our necks from the Ferrari tower in Maranello. So they go to Ferrari and they're like, hey guys, so we're thinking about implementing this thing, but we of course want to listen to what you have to say. And if Ferrari say, you know what, we think that it's a stupid idea. You know what FIA will do? They'll bow in front of the fucking principal and say, yes sir, we'll never implement this again. Okay, it's a bit, you know, I'm exaggerating here. But what I'm trying to say is that there's a very different approach to how the involved parties at F1 interact with other teams. And I already mentioned in my previous video, they get paid. for just existing. Ferrari, Williams, I think some other team, just because they exist, they get extra money. How fucked up is that? Have you heard of any other sport, proper sport, that pays certain teams more money, a lot more money, for just existing, for not leaving? How is that fair? And so there's been agreements made between the Ferrari and FIA that have given them more leverage than other teams. How does that work? How can that happen? But the fact that there's a precedent for this worries me quite a lot. What other secret agreements that we don't know are already in place and influencing the decisions that have been made? It sort of undermines all controversial topics going on in the sport. Everything. Some shady shit, man. And if we zoom out even further, as far as we possibly can, and we look at just the way the sport is set up, and the way the FIA is set up, and the governing body of Formula One, I feel like they're not really that independent, are they? There's been some issues before. Actually, the FIA director had been let go. He was let go not really because there was a specific scandal that came into fruition, but after the 2021 Grand Prix, the 2021 Grand Prix, the finale, that was absolutely legendary, by the way. If you haven't watched it, I mean, what the fuck? And it was controversial, to say the least, between Hamilton and Verstappen. And just because of the active communication that the team directors had during the race with the head, Michael Massey, like the team directors were trying to influence directly through talking to the FIA director live during the race. They're trying to influence and make the decisions come from the FIA in favor of their team. How is that even possible? You can, during the race, everything is happening and decisions are being made, you could just pick up a phone if you're, high up enough. If you're at Williams, you couldn't do shit. If you pick up the phone and try to call Michael Massey and you're not Red Bull, Ferrari or Mercedes, you'd be thrown into a fucking waiting room for 15 minutes with the Dutch anthem playing in the background. But because Christian Horner was calling, or Toto Wolff, Michael was picking up, man. That was his main priority during the race. Talking and being a nanny to those two. It was great entertainment. But it makes me second guess everything now. Including, the decision that was made in that 2021 Grand Prix. And I keep circling back to it, but it's a really big thing. From then on, due to the boost that Red Bull got in the finale, they've been able to produce a car that is dominated last year and absolutely dominated this year. Red Bull have not lost a single fucking race this year, if you haven't noticed. It's ridiculous. By the way, that direct line of communication only was shown on TV that year. Before, it was just like a thing that people knew was happening but never heard. I'm sitting here and fucking thinking, Jesus Christ. This is shady as shit. Where the fuck is my pay-per-view money going? Is this all rigged or what? I think I essentially rounded it up as well quite nicely. The things that have gone on in the sport and are still going on, they're undermining the aspect of each team being independent and each team having the same odds and chances of getting the result that they want to, the chances to win. And if we just take money out of the equation, which is, by the way, very difficult to do, just the whole setup, the governance, the politics involved in the sport is very odd. I think it's very old school. And for some reason, the sport isn't evolved enough to take those precedents out. And so I think the sport is in the right track to address these things, all of these things, but there's certainly a lot to address, and makes you worried as a fan of the sport of whether or not it's really a true and fair fight. I mean, it's definitely not fair, but you're worried if there's more shady things going on than you're used to. That actually sounds really sad. Damn.
Okay. Let me go rewatch the 2021 finale again and see Hamilton get schooled by a 20-year-old. That'll make me happy.
Catch you later.